Hello?
Anthony, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, yep.
Can you hear
So,
me? Okay,
yes, I
great.
can. Perfect. Um, so we are trying this new system. It's kind of more of a test, but really this call is more for just getting acquainted and getting you kind of prepped for the round table. So our video guy behind the scenes is kind of playing with some tools, if that's okay.
That's not a problem.
Okay.
I didn't know Vimeo
So
could
you,
do this. This is a good.
yeah. Well, if we get it rolling here, so we'll just keep going. I'll let him kind of do his thing. And it may look like I'm a little, well, to me, I'm a little delayed, but to you, I may seem on time. And then for when you talk, you may seem a little delayed, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So just testing things. But have you ever seen one of our 80 Insider roundtables?
Yes.
Okay. So you kind of get the format. We're going to have about 6 to 7 people on there and then rolling through this of what everybody's doing and provide value to the audience. That's kind of the goal with it. So for that conversation, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 topics that kind of come out from talking to all the other ADs on the panel. The topics
Hmm.
are transportation, ticketing, spectators, competition, concessions, and live streaming. Do you think there's any other topics that you personally think a national roundtable should cover because a lot of athletic directors are dealing with it?
Well, I know the one thing that I'm am focused on is sort of the social emotional well-being of our student athletes, and getting them back into a routine. So we're going to be doing a lot of um, discussions and meetings and check-ins with our kids, and we're different here in California because we've pushed everything back to a December start. So, and in some ways, that's good. I mean, we've already had plans for whatever was going to happen, and now we can kind of fine tune things. We do need to. We don't even start school until September 8th here at my school, and so from September 8th to the start of, we're going to be doing a lot of check-ins with our kids. We'll start to give them some workouts that will probably start virtually, although there is a chance that we will come back to in-person learning, and so then we have to figure out um, what we want to do with that in terms of social distancing and how we're going to train our kids, which we were doing all summer. So we should be able to go back to our idea book and pull out something there. But before getting into all of those things, the live streaming and all of those things, and getting prepared for sort of the protocols, um, you know, my first thing is to really work with our kids and check in with them and kind of walk them through, how we're going to approach this moving forward.
Right. And, with that, so you say your fall starts December 14th. So walk me through how that setup's going to be. When is like basketball going to start then, which is typically not a fall sport?
Yeah, so basketball for California, we don't start basketball until February practice. Fell into, so California switched from 3 seasons of sport to 2, and they took the winter sports and they merged them into fall and spring. Basketball is actually going to fall into the spring, so they won't start practicing until February. Um, and along with soccer, we play soccer in the winter here, obviously because of the weather. We play soccer here in the winter, so um, those sports have moved into sort of our spring, which is going to be on top of baseball and lacrosse, which is going to be a challenge facility-wise to make all of that happen. Um, and then they've coupled a lot of our sports, boys and girls volleyball, which happen here in California in the fall and spring. Girls in the fall, boys in the spring, will both be in the fall on our fall season, along with boys and girls golf and boys and girls tennis, which are all sports that are fall, spring sports. Are now just going to be all in our new fall. So there's been a lot of change in California to make all of these sports work. So we, obviously when we learned about this, we already started making preparations in terms of sharing of facilities and those things that are going to need to happen. So,
Okay. And so when look at your next couple months, you said a big element for you is more of the social and emotional well-being, doing a lot of check-ins. Um, elaborate more on that in terms of do you have specific programs that you'll be doing, or is it just, like you said, just checking in?
yeah, no, there's we have an advisory system in our school, so kids will be doing some work within that, and then we've just taken it from the athletic standpoint. Our kids have been, um, you know, apart from each other for a while, and so we'll have our coaches and then meet. We'll meet with the kids. And just do regular sort of check-ins, talk to them about things, give them some, and then we'll start some of our programming. So mainly what we're looking to do is we have a program called Next Level Answer. It's sort of a holistic workout program that our strength and conditioning coach, along with a couple of our physical education teachers who are also coaches, have put together for all of our athletes to kind of work out up until we get into probably October, and then we kind of will switch to sort of our summer plan. So since we don't start until December, we're taking October, November, and December and treating it like June, July, and August, and what we do in the summer with workouts for our different teams. So we'll get into our summer workouts for football, for basketball, um, and for all our different sports teams who want to work out during that time. Hopefully, we'll be able to be together fully, and we can do that starting at that time. And then just sort of preparing December as if it was August, and starting from there. So it's each program for the fall has the priority of getting started first, and then we'll start the preseason workout conditioning for our winter, our spring sports teams in December. So the fall sports are going to, we always do something preseason in the summer to gear up for our fall sports, and we're going to start that in October. Until then, we're just going to do some of our check-ins and our virtual workouts with our kids until we can get on the field and start doing things. And obviously, that's up to the school and our county and what they say we can do in California.
Okay. And so a lot of the actual game day protocol conversations are going to be, not to say that they're not going to be something that you can collaborate on. They're going to be something that you're, more going to be trying to learn from and see what other people are doing in terms of implementing.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we have We have our game day protocols in place for what we're going to do. So for example, for volleyball, um, a lot of our kids play club volleyball, so they're going to be used to this. But we're not gonna have benches for volleyball. The kids are going to be standing up. They won't be exchanging sides. We're going to adopt the sort of the collegiate model of what they do during games in terms of ball control. And so we'll have ball persons on the outside who are retrieving the balls, wiping them down, and getting them back into the game. So we have those protocols already in place for that. We have our game day protocols for football in place in terms of visiting teams and access to different spaces. We won't allow them in locker rooms this year. And that could change come December. We might be able to, but the initial protocol was no locker room access. We wouldn't do that. We will have I've already kind of drawn out what our bleachers will look like in terms of if we're allowed to have fans, what that spacing will be, and it will be limited. And then obviously we are anticipating on streaming our games and getting it out to our community that way if we're able to do that. So some of those protocols are in place. Basketball protocols are similar, are in place. Whether we have benches or not, we'll wait to see that. We have a vision of with benches or without benches. We've worked with our athletic trainer about whether we prepare water, how we prepare water, do they bring their own water? You have to even consider the protocols of allowing visiting teams on your campus. Like for us, that is going to be based here in California. The question is whether or not we're going to have to do temperature checks to the other school, or what's our opponent's protocols with their kids. We actually have a conference meeting today, and one of the discussions is what each individual school is doing and what are their expectations if you have visiting teams come on campus. Are we going to have to have our temperature checks for our kids before they come on your campus? Is that your safety protocol? Is that a way to mitigate some of this or not? So we'll find out today from our league what the expectations are going to be.
Yeah, I think that's all over the map too. With some people are county based, some people are state based. In Massachusetts, everybody has to do exactly the same thing, and then you go over to South Carolina, it's a little bit more free flowing.
California's got. Yeah, California, we're based. We have the California Interscholastic Federation, but then it's 10 separate sections within the state, and so the sections can almost do whatever they want to do. They can even choose. So, for example, when the state office came out with the play dates for this year and had combined 2 seasons or 3 seasons to 2, the sections can either adopt that or they can come up with their own thing. And if they came up with their own thing, it's just that if it didn't line up with the state, then they were not going to be eligible to play in a state championship. And that's a decision that they can make. So each individual section, and there's 10 in California, can kind of do their own thing. The majority of the sections are all kind of fallen in place with the state guidelines, but we did have one section who at one point was trying to play fall football because they're way up in Northern California and they didn't have, they weren't on any watch list and they were doing pretty well up there. So they thought they could play football in the fall. That was their initial plan. And now they've even moved away from that and have pushed it back to December. But every section is different in what we do. San Diego section down here, we pretty much kind of have our plans in place, and we're dealing with private schools as well as public schools, and those things are mixed. So we don't have a separate private school league and a separate, public school. Everybody plays against each other in some shape or form. The leagues might be made up of just private schools like our league is, but we play everybody.
Got it. And I know this is really annoying with the upside down video. I'm wondering.
I'm not even looking at it.
Yeah, I wouldn't. It's pretty annoying. I'm trying to figure it out too. So I'm wondering if you can leave and re-click that button just to try it, help us out on our test.
Yep. So you want me to,
Leave.
just get out of it and come back?
Yeah.
Okay.
See if that works. Huh.
Hear me?
I can hear you. Oh,
There we go.
very good. Very good. All right. God, that was annoying. Yeah, so Vimeo does have a Vimeo bot live stream, and now they have the capability to, you see all these Zooms, but then you see the ones that have the graphics on them, and they're streaming out live with nice graphics.
Mhm.
Vimeo has that capability, and we're just testing it out.
Hmm.
Yeah. So now you mentioned live stream. Have you done that in the past? Live stream games and sold access and stuff like that?
We've been working with NFHS on that and making it better. And then we're going to try to figure out the affordability of it all. We don't necessarily like to charge our families for watching our events, so we're looking at ways to have the school just pay an account so that we can just get it out to our families without them having to subscribe to anything.
Right. What are the numbers on that in terms of like what that would cost if I was a school that just wanted to buy it, whatever system's out there? I mean, I'm sure you've done the research. What is that expense?
Well, NFHS is pretty interesting with their Pixelot cameras that they've joined forces with, because now they're actually trying to give them away. Before it was like $2,500, but now they're giving them away. But that comes with each family having to subscribe. So if they're how they're making their money is that then you have to subscribe, and I think it's like $99 a year for you to get access to it. So if you have 100, 200 families who want to $99, then you can understand why they're giving it away. So there's systems like that. There's other systems. Huddle is trying to come up with an outdoor camera. They have an indoor camera right now. Huddle is another company that's kind of trying to monopolize things in terms of the teaching tool. And we use Huddle, and we like it a lot for our coaches to work with our kids. Their camera, it comes with their package. If you have Huddle, you can get a package that includes the camera with them. and you can use that. And then you have to create your own way of streaming, which they can do it. And so some streaming services can be free, or you can just upload your video right to YouTube or Vimeo and show it that way and just give access to your families that way. Um, so then you have to figure out how you're going to, if you're going to have a broadcast version of it, or if you're just going to watch the game.
Right.
We have a broadcaster who has been working for us for a long time and just moved to North Carolina. So we are looking for a new broadcaster, but we're also looking at starting a sort of a production class within our school and allow for students to be broadcasters and them to produce the game. And so I'm excited about that, provide some leadership opportunities for our kids, and we'll see how that goes this year. We'll probably start to work with them in September and in preparation for December in our first football game, and see if they can handle that responsibility. So we're pretty excited about that. That's going to be a great opportunity for our students to learn the behind the scene of producing a football game for fans. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, there's so many ancillary things that they can be a part of in terms of the announcing, the cameras, the switching, the production, the advertising,
Exactly.
and that can directly transferred over to college if they wanted to do that in college, because it's young people doing it there too. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think
We took our football team up to Northern California to play a school up there, and then we went to the Stanford, Oregon football game because one of our kids plays for Stanford, and we got an opportunity at our hotel that we're staying at. The ESPN crew was staying there, and we were talking to them, so they invited the team to come and see their trucks and everything. So our kids got a chance to walk in and see how ESPN produces a football game. And it was really interesting. A couple of our kids were like, "Oh, coach, this is what I want to do." And I'm like, "All right, well, I'm glad we were able to do this. So maybe you'll be able to do it during basketball season." So, yeah, so those are all great opportunities. So we certainly are looking for ways to, provide our kids with those type of opportunities.
And staying on I have a couple more questions that are non-competition related, but staying on the competition, for you looking in, I already kind of got a few notes on what you would be interested in learning from the people that are playing, in terms of how are you managing the visiting teams and so on and so forth. But what other questions would be good, for athletic directors in general for us to include on this? Because you can't really have um, eight people say what they're doing, because it would take forever. So I'm trying to section off, all right, I'm going to have these two people talk about this specific thing and these two people talk about this specific thing. But I want to make sure that I'm covering real topics and asking real questions that people need. So if there's any more on the competition side that you might have in terms of suggestions, that would be interesting to learn what other people are doing it at their school.
Right. Yeah, I mean, for game day protocols, it's just like, it's really there's so much around, again, you talk about the fans and security around that. There are things like you know, how do you do fan control? How do you keep them from congregating somewhere? That's like a huge issue. Like, you can't have people congregating. So how are you going to, if you're going to have fans, like, I read the story in Utah where the AD had to stop the football game in Utah, which I think is pretty interesting that they're having high school football, but the University of Utah is not going to be able to play football. That's a whole nother story. But that, you have to stop the game, make sure people are wearing masks, or you have to spread them, and make sure they're spread out. So really having enough staff is going to be really important, who are basically, people who are just saying, hey, you need to be further apart. Hey, you got to wear your mask. You're going to need additional staffing for your games. I think about, go ahead.
How does that play into your capacity and your occupancy? so you have more, they're taking up that percentage too if you have a lower capacity rate. So then it's weighing that part of it.
It is, and so much of my public school colleagues, so much of their budget can be around, the football, and how much money they can make from ticket sales from football. So if you're limiting that, um, which I get, then you're impacting. If you're going to pay for referees for other sports, or something of that nature. So, but you have to go in and go, okay, we have bleachers that can fit, 1,500 people, and we're going to allow in 50%. So 750 people. Are you doing it by lottery? Are you doing it by first come, first serve? You don't want to do that, because then you're going to have the congregating that you don't want. So you really have to figure out if it's, are you just letting the parents of the players in? And so then you got, one parent, you can't have the family, or you got, if you have 90 kids on your team, you can have two parents. So that's, there you go. So you got your 180 there. How many, if you only have one-sided bleachers or two-sided bleachers, have to decide what you're going to give the visiting fans, what they're going to do. It's going to be a lot more work managing specifically football around, making sure that you have enough staff. Like, we're a small school. We might get, 750 to 1,000 people at a game, but I usually have 10 people working that game,
Right.
now, but now you're going to need more, than that. You might have to double your staff to make sure that you're able to get everything kind of covered, and that you're making sure everyone is socially distanced, that everyone, if you're mandating it, having a mask. We're mandating that you must wear a mask on our campus no matter what. So that's going to be, so how are people, what are people doing about that? Because more staffing means it's more money that you're going to have to spend, unless you're going to, at least in my school, I have a great faculty who's willing to help out, and volunteer. But how do we get all of that done? So it's just things like that, things like how you're going to, what are you going to do for your chain gang? What protocols do they need to be in place with the chain gang? To make sure that they're, like the chain gang is going to have to wear a mask. It's like all those different things that you have to consider for football,
Well,
and then basketball.
and a lot of those people, maybe the refs and the chain gang, are in the age that are at risk.
Yeah. Yes,
So there's
exactly.
a
And then
Um,
the other thing you have to think about is, where are you putting the football refs? Like, they used to be in one room together and they can change. Now you're going to have to separate them out into, or give them a bigger locker room where they can be, socially distant away from each other, but they need to talk. So that you got to have a big enough space so that they can see each other and talk. There's like a lot of fun stuff like that to figure out.
God, it's a puzzle. And for
Yeah.
your school, let's talk about your school specifically, because you are a private school, you are a smaller school. What are some unique things that come out of that? Because we will have, private schools watching this as well.
Yeah. Again, it's about spacing and facilities and what you'll be able to do. That's what it's going to come down to. I've walked our facilities with our facility manager and our coaches, and we were pointing out different things. I think that's important part of your protocol, is to do this ahead of time, and have your game day plan ready to go. Like ours is ready to go. Like, we were supposed to have our first football game last Friday. So we were ready last Friday to implement our plan. And so we have the plan if nothing changes in terms of the status of COVID. We have a plan if, obviously if we're playing football, a whole lot has changed, at least for us in California. A whole lot has changed that we're going to be allowed to play football now. And I know that's different from around the country, but if we're able to play football in December, that means a whole lot has changed. That means that all of a sudden, social distancing is 6 feet apart is no longer being practiced. There's a lot of different, things are happening there. But I think, making sure that if you have a facilities person or someone and your coaches, that you're walking that facility together, taking notes, pointing out where people should be, what they need to be, that's going to be important. As a private school, even though we're private, that doesn't mean we always have every facility in the world. And so, if like for our field, we have a multi-purpose field that has a baseball field on part of it, and then the football field runs through the outfield that we have to utilize. And so we have to think about where we're going to put teams. And so one of the fortunate things, like for us, is that because the baseball field's there, is that we could put the visiting team in like the dugouts and like spread them out that way, and give them that access, since we're not going to give them locker rooms, and things of that nature. So you have to be creative in that part, in terms of that, and then everything else that we do in terms of, we don't have a large, we won't have a huge fan base. We'll have, like I said, 750 to 1,000 people maybe. And so how we fit them in and what we do with that, parking, how do they park? How do they come, directing, a lot of arrows and signage will be really important to kind of direct the traffic flow, and making sure that there's reminders about staying 6 feet apart and all of those different things. And so, for private schools, we live off of volunteers, and so even parent volunteers, everyone, just to kind of help, run a game day. And so it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. There's obviously going to be changes that are going to need to be made after we do it once. We'll see how it goes, because inevitably you're going to have individuals who just want to do what they want to do, and so then you're going to have to make a decision about, are we going to let them do that, or are we going to ask them that, like, you can't come in unless you follow these guidelines. So those are all things that, in a private school world, will be somewhat of a challenge. Parents are paying tuition. They expect certain things. And now we're telling them, well, that's all fine and dandy, but you're going to have to do this, this, and this. So one of the things that we plan on doing is doing a pre-game kind of protocol Zoom with our families and letting them know that here's how game day operations are going to work. We're not doing concessions. Our student body is really upset about that they're not going to be out there barbecuing. And I'm like, we're not doing food. That's just not going to happen right now. I don't want to take that risk, and trying to manage that situation, because it's literally just an outdoor barbecue. That's not like there's a kitchen doing this. This is like students throwing a barbecue together and just going out there and cooking. And I'm like, we're not doing that. So,
Right. What about
so we have to change
online ticketing?
So here's one of the things for private schools and some schools is that we don't always charge for games. We will look at online ticketing for when we do. I know our section, when we get into the section playoffs, does online ticketing for sure. But we rarely charge for games unless it's like preseason. But within our league, we kind of have an agreement that we're not going to charge. Again, we're in a different situation in public schools that are relying on gates to fund their programs. We're fortunate that we have a budget for that, and so we're able to do that. But we do have access to GoFan. We have a GoFan account. We will use GoFan when we determine. We're looking at ideas now. I have a working group that's looking at that, like, do we need to utilize GoFan come December for football, just for when we do have ticket sales, how we would do that. And for sure, we would utilize online ticketing, and we won't go to the normal ticketing anymore.
Beautiful. And again, I'm just going to reiterate, and I'll put this probably in my notes. The the opportunity you'll have to ask questions with the other ADs. Just hearing, you ask about, okay, we're looking at online ticketing. My question is, how do you do X, or what are
Right.
your transaction rates? Um, I really, I mean, an ideal roundtable, I don't really talk. You guys
Mhm.
as the athletic directors kind of take it away. So whenever you see an opportunity, I definitely want you to be able to come in and ask questions.
Sure.
The last thing I wanted to learn more about was Nomad. So Daryl told me a little bit about this, and Mike Kirk reached out to me as well. And then when Daryl, recommended you for the roundtable, I just thought this was a great opportunity to kind of learn what it is, what the goal is, and then how AD Insider can help out with that process.
Right. Uh, so let me start with just kind of how we founded this organization, right? So, um, with everything that's going on in the world, and we just had another shooting in Wisconsin. Uh, I wanted to reach out to athletic directors of color, specifically in California, and just have a dialogue about, you know, how are you going to go back to school, and what's your conversation with your kids going to be? How are you going to help coaches have these difficult conversations, because they're out there, and we needed to have those conversations. So I was really interested in having those type of conversations. So one of my mentors here is Earl Edwards. Earl Edwards is the University of California at San Diego um, athletic director. He's African American. He's been here. He's been there for 20 years. He's moving the school to Division I. So when I was talking to Earl, I was like, Earl, what are you doing with your coaches, talking with your student athletes about what's going on in the world? And he's like, yeah, well, so he's reading this book, and and gave it to the coaches to read about having difficult conversations with your kids. It's pretty interesting. So him and I have been working on that, and we're actually going to probably end up doing we're going to do a webinar from Nomad about that, which is, I'm really excited, and I hope, and Earl's going to join us on that. So we're going to bring that to our membership. But I ended up calling the California State Athletic Directors Association and folks here in San Diego, and I just said, can you provide me with the emails of our ADs of color? And they said they couldn't do it. And I said, well, why not? And they said, well, we don't take that information. And I go, oh. I said, well, how would so you're telling me that you don't know of your makeup of ADs in the state of California who are ADs of color? And they're like, well, why would we have that information, Anthony? I'm like, we're all ADs. And and I literally, because I was so frustrated with it, I just literally said, I said, you have to understand that that's like telling me all lives matter when you say we're all ADs.
Right.
I said, there are situations out there that need to be discussed that are relevant to ADs of color. When I look at the national statistics of the NIAAA and see that 85% of athletic directors in the country are white, then I understand why you feel like you don't need to do that. So, you know, that situation led to me running into Tony Fisher, who's out in Minneapolis. He was doing he was contacted by his state association, and they wanted to get, obviously being in Minneapolis, they wanted to try to get out ahead of this. And so he held a diversity panel and had some discussions, and he invited me on there, and we started talking, and we had some other folks. And that's kind of how Nomad got born. It was out of this idea that NIAAA was finally putting together a diversity committee. We wanted to have voice on that. And so our organization is just, it's an organization to provide support, to sharing ideas, that's really to support underrepresented and minority athletic directors. That could be women, that can be, Black, Latino, Asian American. I mean, there's not a lot of folks out there. And they need that support. And the thing that I was questioning NIAAA about is like, look, I've been a member of NIAAA for 20 years. I go to your conferences. There's not a lot of things targeted to me. There's not a lot of things targeted to even private schools. I could have had a private school athletic directors association for all I know. So if you're going to be my national organization where I'm going to pay dues, you need to provide programming that talks to everyone. So that's what Nomad is. It's really just to assist NIAAA in being an organization for everyone. We're not trying to replace the NIAAA. All 15 board members of Nomad are members of NIAAA. We plan on staying a part of NIAAA, but the reality is that we felt that there needed to be an organization that particularly helped support athletic directors of color, underrepresented ADs, and how to do their job the best way. We wanted to be able to create roadmaps on how people can get into these jobs, because clearly there's a need for these opportunities to be more accessible and available to people of color. So that's kind of our focus. We had a great first webinar that went that went really well. We had over 100 ADs of color, and that was great. And each from the surveys that we've gotten back, everyone's been really thankful. This is exactly what I've been looking for. We haven't had it, so there was a need. So we're just trying to fill a void. I don't ever want NIAAA to feel threatened by this or any way. I want it to be a partnership and a collaboration. But we are going to hold NIAAA accountable to its responsibilities as a national organization for athletic administrators, that they're inclusive. Here in California, I look at the board of the California State Athletic Directors Association, and there's only one person of color on that board for a state of 40 million people. So there are issues everywhere. Minnesota was the same way. When Tony Fisher did his diversity panel, they had no people of color on the Minnesota state board. It's like, and so obviously the numbers need to improve, when 15% of athletic directors in the country, and that's just of those who are members. So the other thing that Nomad is doing is we want to make sure that, a lot of the ADs of color that are involved are in inner city public schools that don't even have the money to allow for athletic directors to join NIAAA. So one of the things that we challenged NIAAA to do is like, look, if we're going to have a conference in Tampa, not all of us can afford to go to that conference. So we need to make the workshops and things virtual so people can attend and be better and become better ADs that way. So a lot of what we're doing in Nomad is looking at the inner city schools that are led by ADs of color, see if they are, number one, members of NIAAA. If they're not, because it's a affordability issue, that they become a member of Nomad. Right now, we don't have any dues for Nomad as we get started. And I don't know, as we continue to grow, what we are going to do with that. I'm hoping that we never have to charge dues. It's a grassroots organization, and I'm really excited about it. So I'm hoping that I can at least be able to, I don't want to necessarily introduce it. I normally just like to have, not only that I'm the AD at Francis Parker School in San Diego, but I'm the co-founder of Nomad as part of my title. And, if someone wants to know about Nomad, I'm happy to share it with them or give them a QR code where they can go to the website.
Yeah. Well, one easy way to bring it up in the talk is, I think having the difficult conversations, I think is pretty consistent across the board in terms of everybody is dealing with that, whether you're an AD of color talking to a white coach, or a coach of color talking to a white AD, or so vice versa. difficult conversations, trying to get on the same page. My wife's a college coach, and she has, 4 or 5 books that she's picked up just to figure out, just to educate herself on how to connect with her athletes of color. So it's across the board, it's a different.
Here's the book that we're using. Oh, sorry. I can't figure out the damn video. Here we go.
Race Talk. Okay, I'll put that right here. And it surrounds that conversation. I mean, it's surrounded around that conversation.
So at the bottom, you can see understanding and facilitating difficult dialogue on race.
Perfect.
So this is the book that UC San Diego is using. And the book that I've been reading and figuring out, it's going to be one of our books that we use in Nomad, because we're going to have a book club where we're reading these things and talking about it. So we're looking forward to providing that space for those of us who are readers to help develop plans and protocols around supporting all of our athletes. These are difficult conversations. I'm at a predominantly private school. It's a PWI for the most part. We have maybe about 25% students of color, but it's a predominantly white institution. I think it's important for me to take on this leadership role so that my students can see a person of color in this leadership role. But then we have to have conversations with our white students about allyship and how they can support and understand what's going on in the world and what they need to do. And those are tough conversations to have. And so I'm looking forward. I'm certainly not afraid to have them, but it was one of those things at the time where, I'm happy that I have a group of ADs and now I have a whole organization where I can throw things out in a chat and learn from others across the country what they're doing. Clearly, San Diego is going to be a different conversation than one of our Nomad board members is in Auburn, Alabama. So they're going to have a different conversation than what I'm going to have. Ira Childress is another board member at Gulliver Prep in Miami, Florida. He's going to have a different conversation than what I'm going to have in San Diego. But there could be consistent themes that we do have. So we have board members from all over the country, which is great. From Punahou School in Honolulu, Hawaii, to Middletown School and high school in Connecticut and in Middletown, Connecticut. We have schools in Virginia. We have Amanda Snyder out of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. She's got a big ESPN football game on Friday. So I'm like, wow, there are, and she's already playing games, and so I've learned a lot from her in terms of they're playing volleyball and they're doing football right now in Oklahoma. So it's great to have on the board and listening to what some of their protocols and what they're doing. So this group has been it's become a family affair already. So I'm really happy with it. It's just we believe in allyship. We want all of that, and so we're not trying to be exclusive, but there are conversations that ADs of color that they need to first have with each other before they start talking publicly about it.
Right. Well, I think I'll do my best to include it in the conversation as far as, because you kind of talked about it with your season going to December. What are you focusing on? It's easy to go to for the athletes. I'm focusing on how do we make sure they're mentally stable and what can we do as a whole there. For me personally, professionally, I've started an organization called Nomad. If anybody's interested in it, it's basically, X, Y, and Z. One of the things we're doing right now is talking about this book because Tina, who's on the round table, brought up the book. She was on one of your calls and she brought up the
Mhm.
book, and she's been phenomenal for her to have those conversations.
Yeah.
So I do think there's value. I do think we want to make sure people know about it. So we'll have several
Mhm.
hundred coaches or ADs on the call, and it'll be a good time to kind of just get a little bit out there. Definitely don't want it to divert the whole thing because I know it'll kind
No.
of derail the conversation, but definitely give you an opportunity for a plug and get that out there.
I would really appreciate that. Like I said, it's a grassroots organization, but it's really about just providing support for each other, and and so we're really excited about the direction that we're going in. So happy to share a little bit about that, and then provide what I know of what we're doing in terms of protocols, and and all those different aspects of it. So I'm looking forward to Thursday.
Perfect. Well, from here on
Now,
out, I will get you. Say it again.
is there a link that you'll send me to log in? Are we doing this on Zoom in a webinar type of way, or how do you guys do it?
Yeah, it'll be on Zoom. What we'll do is I will compile all my notes, get my questions in order, and then send it out to all the roundtable panelists with their panelist links. And
Okay,
you'll have that tomorrow. And
great.
then on Thursday, I'll pop on 15 minutes before, make sure we're all dialed in, and then we'll go live.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks for doing this test with us. I'm sorry it was just so wonky with the video.
Hey, not a problem. We're all learning different technology these days. So, some of it we're probably going to end up keeping. So it's all good.
Perfect. All right. Well, I thank you for your time, and be looking for an email from me.
Sounds good, man. You have a good day.
All right. You too.